Hey there, it's Leslie with Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and welcome back for the fourth bow in a 6-bow series. If you haven't caught the other bows, the link is in the description. But this bow is going to be a little bit different. We're going to actually do a wet on wet effect, and we're not going to do a front and a back bow. We're going to use the same cookie cutter and just make one big bow. So I'm going to start out by outlining all of the sections. I'm just going to use my white royal icing to do this. It's about a 15-second consistency, and then I will use a wet on wet effect to flood in each of these rows. And because I was already using my white icing, I just went ahead and started with that color, and then I'll use my scribe to settle it down and get it into the corners. And then I'm going to immediately grab my orange royal icing and flood in this top section, again using my scribe to gently jiggle the icing smooth. And then I'll immediately grab my red icing and flood in the section right underneath that white section. I'm just going to continue in this process until all of the sections are flooded. And I'm going to speed the video up since you've seen me do a couple of stripes already. And now we've finished the right side of the bow. Let's move on to the left side. And I'm going to show you this again because I actually screwed it up, but I'm going to show you what I tried to do to fix it. So this section right here should have been white, but I actually flooded it in with red. So after smoothing it out, I'm going to grab my white icing and create a thin line in between the orange and the red line. And then grab my scribe and just gently kind of tap at it a little bit to get it all to settle together and become smooth. And then I'll go ahead and pipe the white line underneath the red. The white icing is supposed to separate all of the colors. But because of my screw up with the red icing, now I have more stripes on this one side of the bow than I do on the other side of the bow. And that's okay. You're not going to really be able to tell at the end unless you look for it. But it did kind of mess up the balance of this bow. And I didn't want the bottom part of the bow to be a white stripe, so I went ahead and added another thin white stripe and then an orange stripe. So I really have a lot more stripes on that side. Anyway, I put this bow aside to dry for a while, and now I'm going to go back and outline and flood in the tails, again using the same wet on wet effect and coloring them in just like I did for the bow loops. So I'm going to start by outlining the different sections, and then I'll go back and flood those in using the same process. And I started by flooding in the red section at the far end. I didn't keep that on the video because my hand was in the way and you couldn't see it anyway. But again, I'm just following the same process, outlining each section and flooding it in and using my scribe to get the icing up to the points and smooth it out, being careful not to disturb the stripe that's next to it. And after I flood in this last section with white, I'll go ahead and do the other side, following the same process. And because the top part of the cookie has already been drying, I can go ahead and flood in this center section. And I decided I wanted a square loop in the middle, so I went ahead and outlined it and made it into a square. But that was a lot of icing, and my white icing is a little bit of a thin consistency, so it did overflow the edge a little bit, so I'm just going to scrape the excess away with my scribe. And then I'm going to set this cookie aside to dry. Okay, so I decided to add in some line work in order to kind of hide the fact that one side has more stripes than the other side. So using my orange icing, I'm just going to make a series of lines across the top of the bow, and then I'll go back with my red and my yellow and make some more lines. And I'm just outlining each of the bow stripes here with the orange icing for the entire bow. Then I decided I wanted the center of the bow to be puffier, so I outlined it again, and I'm going to flood it in another time. I'll let this dry, and then I'm going to go back in and add the red and yellow stripes. And I'm only adding the red and yellow stripes to the top part of the bow. I'm going to leave the tails of the bow alone. And by adding all of these stripes and all of this line work, you really can't tell that the left side of the bow is different than the right side of the bow. It really helped to even out the balance. And I'm just using my paintbrush here to tap down any endings to my lines. And then I went back and went around the center of the bow with a red royal icing. And then this cookie is done. If I hadn't told you I messed up my stripes, would you have noticed in the finished cookie? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to show you that cookie ears are not always perfect, and sometimes there's ways to save your design. And that's my goal, is to teach you everything I know about cooking. See you next time.